Yo. Hey everyone, happy Friday. Today I want to go over giving Reiki to your chest and give a little rundown of what the heart chakra is like and what the nature of that energy center right here is. So first, we're going to get into our starting position. You know the drill. And if you don't, that's fine. You're going to focus on the space in between your hands. You're going to focus on the physical sensation on the skin, on your palms and on your fingertips. You're going to allow your attention to rest in between your hands, and then on the surface of your hands, and then in between your hands, and then on the surface of your hands. And slowly but surely, especially if you've been following along with these videos, you'll start to feel a little something in there. Warm feeling, prickly feeling, buzzing feeling. All right, and that's great. And if you need to play around with this for a little while, I'm gonna move on. So take our hands, put them on our chest. This is a great position because it covers most of the important stuff. You have your lungs on each side here. You have some of the important organs directly nestled in between them and below, going into your stomach. And we have the heart right here, which is getting addressed by your palm. So that's a great position to place your hands in if you're gonna be Reiki-ing up your chest. Now you can move them around. If you feel a particular tension point, you can move over it. Another way to do it, if you want to think about amplification, is you could put your other hand over one hand that's working on a particular area and feed energy there. I spent too many years as a smoker, so oftentimes when I do Reiki on my lungs, I will actually feel points where damage has been done that I simply don't think about. And maybe that's not a great thing. So I'll allow the energy to flow there for a little while to hopefully bring some atonement to those places. So as you're working them around, and just play around. I know sometimes I get anxiety and stress that sort of forms in my sternum, so I'll place my hands there to kind of deal with that sort of neuroses and some of that stress that can build up, particularly right there in the center of your chest. Now note, according to the diagrams, your heart chakra is essentially right here, and all of your organ centers, are part of it. And so if you are doing Reiki and you don't have a particular thing wrong with your organs, but you're just going through a breakup, or you're mourning something, or you're feeling grief or fear or worry, sometimes that sensation just forms right in here, man. And it's fine. You don't need a specific organ that you're aiming for. You can just work on the feeling of well-being radiating through your chest. Sometimes it's good to have the hands on. Sometimes you can lift them off and sort of use the same practice as you were using with the hands in the starting position. That is, feel the space in between your chest and your hands. Focus on the sensation of the feeling of touch on your hands and on the surface of your chest, and then focus on the space in between again. And I went through that pretty fast, but you can actually spend entire minutes just focusing on the space between. I'm gonna get a little metaphysical now, as I know a bit about this. So there are a lot of people out there, I think, in the energy work field, the woo-woo field, who would say that the heart is the chakra of relationships, and I don't really focus on that too much, and I'll tell you why. Your relationships are so much of your life. I would argue 70% of our daily life that we think about involves relating to another person in one way or another, whether it's your personal relationships, your family, your spouse, your work relationships. their relationships. Even if you work construction, which is with your body, I think if you spend an afternoon with a construction guy having a beer after work, he'll tell you all about his relationship with his boss and his other coworkers. So it's a very human thing to think that relationships are sort of the center of things, and therefore it would be the center of our heart chakra. But the thing to understand is, particularly from like a medical practitioner point of view, is relationships and the energy where they're in are actually stored in multiple places in our body. I think one of the easiest ones to explain this with is with your head. You may have a headache associated with whenever you come home and talk with your spouse for that first hour. Every time you come home, man, it just sucks. And yeah, you feel it in your chest from the stress, but it eventually manifests as like a headache too, right? It's the same thing with anything. Like, relationships can cause and are related to the energy centers of all of our body. It may turn out that the reason you get a headache every time you go home is because you and your wife haven't actually talked about what you'd like to see in the first hour that you get home and what you can both do to contribute to that being a pleasant time. And if you never had that conversation, and it's just two people trying to get two things that they've never enunciated through to the other person who's not listening, yeah, that causes a headache. And I wouldn't say that's your heart. I'd say that's your processing ability. Got to think about things, right? And so, like I said, relationships deal with all parts of your body. It's a full body activity, being in relationships with people. So to say that that's what the heart chakra is all about, I just don't agree. What I think the heart chakra is more about in terms of the practice is what we see in the organs, which is respiration. We breathe from our chest. We move gently or forcefully through space on the sea of the universe from our chest. When I focus on giving Reiki to the chest, I focus on breathing. And I focus on letting things go. I don't know about you, but I see a lot of people like this, and I know I'm like this. We suffer from the tyranny of the head, the tyranny of the worry, the tyranny of the thought. And we very rarely give ourselves time to be and just exist without needing to tend to thoughts or ambitions that come from our gut. Desires and pleasures. Something's always tugging us along, but the heart chakra, the chest, is in the middle of it all and knows that the greatest power and the greatest motivation for life comes from the heart. You can't live without your heart. And so it is important, even though we are trained by the world to think that we need to be on top of every little thing. We can't stop thinking about something. We can't stop worrying about it, because if we do, it'll all go out of control. And we think that about a lot of things. Thinking about relationships, thinking about our jobs, gotta always be on top of things. And at the same time, I think that, you know, once you get into energy work and once you start appreciating yourself rather than your schedule, you'll see that you're actually quite resilient and quite strong and quite able to breathe and focus and adapt in the moment. And that's what we really want. You know, it's fine to pre-plan, it's fine to worry, it's fine to draw up a schematic of what needs to be done. All those things can be necessary, but and it's also necessary to allow ourselves to be the natural, respiring, breathing in and out, up and down, back and forth, good and bad, light and dark beings that we really are. And I think the return to the truth of that and the necessity for the different parts of ourselves to be in unison rather than just work in unison, be of each other. Because it's true, like the respiring that your chest does, that your lungs do, gives oxygen to everything. Even your brain, like your brain needs tremendous amounts of oxygen in order to run. The heart pumps the blood through everything. Nothing would work without it. And so taking a moment to get hit by these societal thoughts, these responsibilities, these requirements is exhausting. And sometimes you can get so overwhelmed that it's hard to even remember to breathe. And so we remember to breathe. And you can take that anywhere. You can take that same breath, you can take that same moment of remembering your breath, of taking this moment to yourself, and you can apply it, hopefully, anywhere. And I know that life gets busy, and I know that we need to think about things, but I think you will find that if you spend a little time resonating with your own heart, you'll find that you're actually capable of things quite spontaneously, and that your spontaneous self just might have your best interests in mind. So, all right, so that's it for today, guys. You can return to starting position. I like to thank the Reiki, thank you, Reiki, for being so awesome and omnipresent and stuff. And thank you guys. I hope that you got something out of this. I hope you're having a good weekend, and keep at it. And remember to breathe.